Hello students, we are studying the first chapter of the paper first, S.Y.B.Sc. It is phase equilibrium. Now in that next topic we are going to study is the phase rule. We know that at phase equilibrium, when we are studying the different types of the equilibrium in the system that contains variable substances. In the last lecture we have derived the equation for the partial molar free energy, which is found to be same for all the components or all the substances which are present in the system. Now we are going to study what is the phase rule for the system of the different component. Now phase rule, it will give the relationship between, the number of the components, degree of the freedom with at the equilibrium with number of the components and the number of the phases present in the system. So this phase rule, it is first given by the scientist J.W. Gibbs. This scientist has first explained the phase rule for different types of the system. So according to this rule, it is stated that the degree of the freedom, phase rule, degree of the freedom, it is related to the corresponding component of the system and the phases of the system. So it states that the degree, there is relationship between the degree of the freedom at equilibrium with the different component of the system or the number of the component of the system and the number of the corresponding phases of the system. So this relationship, it can be explained by this equation F. F is nothing but the degrees of the freedom. We have studied it already. So this degree of the freedom can be calculated depending upon the number of the component and the number of the phases. Here the degrees of the freedom is equals to C minus P plus 2. Now here C are the components which are present in the system and P, it is the different types of the phases or the possible phases in the system. Now this phase rule, it is very important in studying the different types of the phase diagram, different types of the phases that occurred at the variables, different variable, especially at the pressure and the temperature. Now let us consider some examples of this system. So first example is the definite amount of the gas is enclosed in the cylinder. If we take the system, enclosed cylinder in which gas is taken, so only one type of the gas is taken here, definite mass of the gas. So particular mass of the gas is taken in the enclosed system, enclosed in the cylinder. So as the only one gas is present, so only one component. So component is the chemically distinguishable species which can be separated by the mechanical treatments. So this is the component. Only one component is possible for the system because one type of the gas is present here. Now only gas is present. So it is the gaseous system and only one phase is present. So phase is 1. So if we put this value in the formula, we will get 1 minus 1 plus 2 equals to, we are getting the 2. And the independent variables for the system are the corresponding pressure and the temperature. So we are getting the 2 degrees of the freedom, and such a type of the system, it is called as the bivariant system. Now let us consider second example. Water is in equilibrium with the water vapor. So here vapors are present in the gaseous state and water is present in the liquid state. So 2 phases are possible here. So 2 phases are given, but the chemically distinguished species is only one, H2O, that is water. So H2O is present in liquid state as well as vapor state. So only one component can be given, one component is present for the system. So we can calculate the degrees of the freedom. So component 1 minus 2, that is phases plus 2 equals to 1. Add the variable particularly pressure and the temperature. So this is the 1 degree of the freedom is present. So it is the monovariant system. Now next equilibrium reaction of the system can be considered. Calcium carbonate solid, it is in equilibrium with the calcium oxide, which is solid, plus carbon dioxide, which is the gaseous state. Now here 3 different types of the phases are present, because each chemical constituent will give the single phase. Here calcium carbonate will form the one phase, another will be calcium oxide, and another will be carbon dioxide. Only gas and liquid and solid is not only considered as the phase. So chemically distinct component that will form the corresponding phase. So here 3 phases are given, but the components of the system are only 2, because when we consider the determination of the composition for the given system, only 2 components are considered, because this calcium oxide and carbon dioxide together form the calcium carbonate. So here we are getting only the 2 component system. So we can calculate here number of degrees of the freedom for the system. It is the components 2 minus 3 phases plus 2. So it becomes 4 minus 3. It is again monovariant system is present here. Now next is the ice in equilibrium with water. Water is in equilibrium with the water vapor. Now here chemical constituent or component is only one, that is water or H2O. We can say it as H2O. It is present in ice state, it is present in water state, it is present in vapor state. So 3 phases are possible here and only 1 component is there. So number of degrees of the freedom can be calculated as the corresponding components is 1 and phases are 3 plus 2 equals to this minus 2 plus 2 equals to 0. So it is non-variant system, and this non-variant system can be given as example of the water, which is in equilibrium with the vapors, water vapors and the ice. So this is the non-variant system. At the particular independent variables are given, pressure and at the given temperature. Now let us consider again one more example here. Mercury in liquid state plus water in liquid state plus CCl4 in liquid state. These are in equilibrium with vapors. Now here 3 components are present: mercury in liquid state, water in liquid state and the CCl4 in the liquid state. These components, 3 components are present here. So these are water, liquid, mercury and CCl4. All these liquids are the immiscible with each other. So they will form the corresponding 3 components. These are the chemically distinguishable 3 components are present in the system. And now here 4 phases are present, because independently these 3 liquids forming the 3 phases, when vapors are formed, these vapors are formed by the 3 corresponding liquids at the corresponding temperature and pressure. So this vapor having the composition that is corresponding to water, mercury and CCl4. It having the different composition than this particular individual liquid. So vapor will form the another phase. So total 4 phases are given for this particular system. So we can determine the degrees of the freedom for the system: 3 component minus 4 plus 2. So here minus 1 plus 2. So it will give the value of 1. So monovariant system is possible for the system. at the given pressure and temperature. That is, pressure and temperature are the independent variables which are given for the system. So these are very much important examples which can be discussed for the degrees of the freedom. Now let us consider the derivation for this equation, how this equation can be derived mathematically. So for this we have to consider the different types of the system that contains one component, two component, three component, and so on. So now let us consider this derivation. Now consider the case where in the system one component is present. So for one component system, two independent variables can be given, which are the temperature and the pressure here. So when one component is given, that is monovariant system, so only temperature and pressure are the independent variable. If we consider two component system, for example zinc and copper metal, they are present in the molten form. They are melted and they are combined together, they will form the bivariant system. They are having the two components. And now for two component system, here three independent variables can be given. So already pressure and temperature, two independent variables are present, but now for the two component system, along with these two variables, pressure and temperature, third variable will comes in the picture. It is the concentration of these two component, or the concentration of the two component in the corresponding phase, their corresponding phase. So here for the two component system, three variables can be explained. Now when we consider the three component system, for example for this type of the system, concentration of the two must be known and third variable or the concentration of the third component must be fixed. So when three component system is given, so the two component concentration must be known and concentration of the third component must be fixed. If we consider now C component system, C is the number of different types, different number of the components. C component of the system, independent variables becomes C minus 1 because we have kept one variable fixed or constant in three component or more than three component system. So we can write for the C component system, we can write independent variables. So terms become C minus 1. So one component is fixed, one variable is fixed, so we have subtracted one, so it becomes C minus 1. Now for the P phases, this is the C component. For the C component, we can determine the independent variable is C minus 1. And for the P phases, this becomes P into the independent variable, that is P into C minus 1, plus two variables are also given, pressure and temperature. So equation becomes P into C minus 1 plus 2. So this is the first derivation given for the C component of the system with P phases of the system. So we have got this equation first. Now if we consider different types of the equilibriums are present, alpha, beta, if these two are the equilibriums are present in the system, then G bar is the partial molar free energy for this equilibrium. And this equilibrium, so as these equilibrium, different types of the equilibrium, they are present. So the partial molar free energy, it is same for this equilibrium or these two phases, this alpha and beta. So for P phases at equilibrium, we can write P minus 1 for the component because we are keeping one variable fixed. So For the phases p minus 1, it becomes p minus 1, and for the component C, it becomes C into p minus 1. So further we can write here. Now we can put this value into equation. So what we are getting? So first we have got this p into c minus 1 plus 2, and second equation is the c into p minus 1. So number of the independent variables, that is the degrees of the freedom or the number of independent variables can be calculated by formula number of the variables minus the number of available equations for the given system. So we can write here f is equals to what variable we are getting here. From the first equation we are getting p into c minus 1 plus 2. These are the number of variables we have derived here, and this number of available equation we have got the c into p minus 1. This is the equation. So minus c into p minus. If we solve this equation, we are getting here pc minus p plus 2 minus pc plus c. So this minus pc plus pc get cancelled. So we are getting this c minus p plus 2. So our equation becomes here f equals to c minus p plus 2. That is, this is the equation. F equals to c minus p plus 2. So this is the derivation for the equation which can give the degrees of the freedom for the corresponding system. And from this equation we can calculate whether the system is zero variant, that is non-variant, monovariant, bivariant, and so on. So this is about the degree of freedom. In the next lecture we will study the different types of the phase diagram. Thank you for watching this video.